Nightline begins now with me, Muhammed Ahmad Hamdan. News making the headlines. OPR hike. Monetary policy is preemptive, not premature, says Bank Negara. And Turkey's Erdogan takes early lead in historic presidential runoff. Good morning. Bank Negara Malaysia has dismissed claims that the move to raise the overnight policy rate OPR by 25 basis points on May 3rd was done prematurely. Its Governor Tan Sri Nur Shamsiah Muhammad said instead the monetary policy decision was a carefully considered preemptive measure to ensure steady economic growth while bringing down inflation in Malaysia instead of waiting until it gets out of control. In a letter to editors shared on BNM's website on Sunday, Tan Sri Shamsiah wrote that the decision by the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee (MPC) was made as economic conditions have even surpassed pre-pandemic levels, registering a 5.6% gross domestic product (GDP) growth for the first quarter of 2023. Therefore, it is only right that macroeconomic policies are recalibrated to reflect this. She also pointed out that cost pressures have been easing, with headline inflation averaging at 3.6% in the first quarter, compared to 3.9% for the previous quarter. However, despite some moderation, prices are expected to remain elevated due to strong demand, driven by the economic recovery. Tan Sri Shamsiah added that BNM also needs to prevent inflation from becoming entrenched, given the resilient economic growth, as it will take much bigger and faster OPR increases to bring inflation down once it has taken root. The B40 and vulnerable groups are also the ones who will be the most affected, and the country will not be able to preserve sustainable growth over the longer term if inflation gets out of hand. Her response came following the criticism by some quarters that claim that there was no need for the recent OPR hike as inflation in Malaysia has been moderating. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said media practitioners should not insult the opposition or those with differing views than the government when reporting the news. He also said they have the right to have their voices heard in the press, adding that he did not want the current opposition to experience what previous opposition parties and members had gone through.
Kita harus berdiri dan tegak dalam merakam peristiwa, menilai, harus pertahankan prinsip dan nilai dan prinsip akhlak itu. Maknanya di kalangan rakan-rakan kita yang tidak bersama atau memilih untuk menentang, itu harus diberi hak menyuarakan tanpa merasa mereka itu akan terus dicela, dihina seperti mana kami alami dulu. Inilah perubahan dalam arti kata politik yang berdasarkan nilai.
Datuk Seri Anwar said this when launching the National Journalist Day Hawana 2023 celebration in Ipoh, Perak on Sunday, which was attended by about 1,000 media practitioners. In his address, the Prime Minister maintained that Malaysian media must remain totally independent and free from any external influence or pressure which would influence fair reporting. At the same time, he said news outlets must avoid publishing reports that could incite racial or religious enmity to safeguard the nation's harmony. He also said that criticism of the government was welcome as long as it does not involve any form of racial provocation and attempt to disturb public order. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Anwar said that the newspaper industry still has a role to play amidst the rapid existence of social media content and the challenges seen in the new era of journalism. According to the Prime Minister, despite some quarters believing that major news outlets, including newspapers, would be on the decline, these had been proven wrong. He added that media entities would continue to survive if they maintain a high level of integrity and quality, as well as freedom of their publication. At the same ceremony, Datuk Seri Anwar also announced a starting allocation of 1 million ringgit for Tabung Kasih at Hawana, which was established in conjunction with Hawana 2023. He said the allocation is meant to reach out to media practitioners, former media personnel and veteran journalists who need help. The fund was an initiative of the Communications and Digital Ministry and was implemented through the Malaysian National News Agency or Bernama as part of continuing efforts to help the media community. Meanwhile, for communications and digital media, Fahmi Fadzil, Malaysia not only needs an independent media, but one that is also brave enough to speak without fear or favour. He said such media is needed not only in terms of checks and balances, but also to make sure that the voices heard will be recorded and reported.
And yet, it is not a position at which or in which we should rest on our laurels. There's a lot of work to be done because we do need not only a free and independent media.
Fahmi said this in his opening remarks at the Hawana 2023 Media Forum in Ipoh on Sunday. He stated that Malaysia is ranked 73rd in the World Press Freedom Index 2023 as released by Reporters Without Borders, which is the highest the country has achieved in many years, but cautioned that this position should not be taken for granted. He also hoped that media practitioners will be able to broaden their horizons through discourse to find solutions to challenges faced by the industry to ensure its future. Later at another event, Fahmi said his ministry will focus on addressing the issue of copyright protection of media practitioners' works, in addition to the welfare of the group. In the era of rapid technological progress, the minister pointed out that many works produced by media practitioners, including photos, articles and content on social media, were used arbitrarily without permission. The government plans to formulate an act to provide social security protection to e-hailing workers. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ahmad Hamidi said he had discussed with Human Resources Minister V. Sivakumar for the matter to be refined to meet the needs of employers and employees.
Jika akta ini pun saya fikir ianya mesti memakan hati semua pihak. Yang penting asasnya ialah jaminan masa depan mereka. Kita harus memperkukuhkan kerana ini adalah bidang baru, ya, terutamanya selepas pandemik, ya, di mana ada yang terpaksa berhenti daripada bekerja kerana diberhentikan.
Datuk Sri Zahid said this to the media after officiating the closing ceremony of the My Future Jobs Career Carnival 2023 in Hutan Melintang, Perak on Sunday. He also said the formulation of the Act would take some time, as it would involve the Attorney General's chambers, as well as gathering input from several non-governmental organisations, NGOs and associations involved in the e-hailing industry. He added that e-hailing workers should be protected not only with insurance, but also with perks and benefits. The government will also make adjustments to salaries so that the income received by employees is commensurate with the work performed. Moving on, the Works Ministry will soon begin upgrading the Kuala Lumpur-Kara Expressway, which will include additional lanes between the Gombak and Bentong toll plazas. Its Deputy Minister, Datuk Sri Abdul Rahman Muhammed, said an allocation of 1.7 billion ringgit has been approved, and the Malaysian Highway Authority, MHA, will begin carrying out the upgrading works beginning July.
Menambahkan lorong dan bermula pada Julai ini, dan kita akan tambah satu terowong. Dah dilulus, dah akan mula pembinaan pada Julai dan dikeluarkan kerja tersebut oleh LLM sendiri, Lembaga Lebuh Raya sendiri, dan saya percaya dengan pelebaran dan menambah terowong tersebut akan dapat mengurangkan beban, tapi pembinaan pun lebih kurang 3 tahun. Baru boleh selesai dalam 3 tahun, dan 3 tahun pun kita MLFF pun akan selesai. So trafik-trafik seperti itu yang ditanyakan soalan itu akan dapat meringankan beban dari segi trafik tersebut.
Datuk Sri Abdul Rahman said this in a media conference after launching the 47th Terengganu Malaysian Malay Contractors Association PKMM Annual General Meeting in Kuala Terengganu on Sunday. On another note, he said the ministry would bring a proposal to the Cabinet to limit the granting of new licenses to contractors of various classes by the Construction Industry Development Board, CIDB. This was following PKMM's concern on the matter, which has put pressure on existing contractors in securing construction projects. Based on last month's statistics, the total number of G1 to G7 class contractors doubled when it recorded 136,000 new and existing licenses compared to 60,000 licenses in 2019. Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah began a 5-day special visit to Monaco with a courtesy call to Prince Albert II at the Palace of Monaco on Saturday. According to a post on Istana Negara's official Facebook page on Sunday, His Majesty was welcomed on arrival at the Palace of Monaco by Prince Albert II at 10:30 a.m. local time or 4:30 p.m. Malaysia time. After the meeting, both Al-Sultan Abdullah and Prince Albert attended the launching ceremony of the Rover Lunaire Flex all-purpose vehicle at the headquarters of Venturi, an automated vehicle manufacturer based in Monaco. Prince Albert officiated the ceremony, which was also attended by the Prime Minister of Monaco, Serge Teller, and the owner and CEO of Venturi, Gildo Pastor. His Majesty also visited the F1 team Mercedes Petronas at the paddocks and Automobile Club Monaco in the afternoon local time on Saturday. The King is currently on a 5-day special visit to Monaco until May 30th at the invitation of Prince Albert. After this breather, government officials suspended after draining reservoir to retrieve phone. Details when we return. Foreign news. Preliminary partial results of Turkey presidential election showed President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in the lead with 55.3%, as his opponent Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu stood at 44.7% as of 11:50 p.m. Malaysia time. Polls were closed at 5 p.m. local time after opening at 8 a.m., with the outcome is expected to start becoming clear by evening. The official results are expected to emerge earlier than they did on May 14th, given that voters have only 2 options to choose from this time round. The election, which entered a runoff after neither of the 2 candidates received an outright majority in the first round, is considered one of the most consequential in the country's modern history. It will decide whether the country's longtime leader stretches his increasingly authoritarian rule into a 3rd decade or is unseated by a challenger who has promised to restore a more democratic society. The incumbent president, who has been at Turkey's helm for 20 years, was favoured to win the new 5-year term in the second round runoff after coming just short of outright victory in the first round on May 14th. In the first round of voting, Erdogan secured a nearly 5-point lead over Kılıçdaroğlu but fell short of the 50% threshold needed to win. A government official in India has been suspended from his job on Saturday after he ordered a water reservoir to be drained so he could retrieve his smartphone, which he had dropped while taking a selfie. More than 2 million litres of water were pumped out of the Paraukot reservoir in an effort to retrieve the handphone belonging to a local food inspector, Rajesh Vishwas. Vishwas first asked divers to search for the phone, claiming it contained sensitive government data. But after the initial efforts failed, he asked for the reservoir to be emptied using diesel pumps. He told reporters the water was unusable for irrigation and he had received permission from a senior official to drain the reservoir. However, his employer, who suspended him on the grounds of misusing his position, noted he had wasted millions of litres of water at a time of severe heat and claimed that Vishwas did not receive permission to drain the water. The smartphone was eventually retrieved but would not even start as it was waterlogged. Russia unleashed waves of airstrikes against Kyiv on Sunday in what officials said appeared to be the largest drone attack on the city since the start of the war, leaving one person dead. However, according to Ukraine's Air Force, it managed to shoot down 52 out of the 54 launched drones, calling it a record attack with the Iranian-made kamikaze drones. The drone attacks, which appear to come from the north and south at low altitudes, also set ablaze a 3-story warehouse, destroying about 1,000 square meters of building structures in the Holosivsky district. The pre-dawn attacks came as the city prepared to mark the anniversary of its official founding 1,541 years ago. Malaysia forced to satisfy with second place. Action from the Malaysian Masters after this breather. Don't go away. The 2023 Perodua Malaysia Masters. Malaysia's hope of seeing at least one national pair crowned champion diminished when both men's and women's doubles fell to their respective opponents in the finals on Sunday. Playing against South Korean pair Kang Min Hyuk and Seo Seung Jae, national men's doubles Man Wei Chong and T Kai Woon showed their high fighting spirit and determination before losing the 3-set battle. The South Korean pair took the first set 21-15, with Man and T claiming the second set 24-22. The third set saw both pairs pushing hard, and the trophy finally went to Kang and Seo with a 21-19 victory. In the women's event, Pearly Tan and Tina's fine run at the Malaysia Masters ended on Sunday when they lost to world number 6 pair Baikana Lee Soo-hee of South Korea in the final. The world number 11 pair went down fighting 20-22, 21-8, 17-21 to Hana So-hee in an energy-snapping final that lasted 101 minutes at the Axiata Arena. Pearly Tina were the first home pair to make it to the final of a home tournament since Ong Yu-sin Teo Yi reached the final in 2019. Yu-sin Yi also emerged runners-up. Turning to football, the 2023 FA Cup, Kuala Lumpur City FC and Johor Darul Takzim FC completed the semi-final lineups after beating their respective opponents on Sunday night. In Kota Kinabalu, KL City claimed their berth in the last four after defeating Sabah FC 2-1. At the Sultan Ibrahim Stadium, JDT set a semi-final clash with Selangor FC after trouncing Penang FC 5-0. JDT took the lead after 32 minutes through Usman Fane's own goal before Jordi Amat doubled the advantage 6 minutes later. Arif Aiman Muhammad Hanapi put JDT in the driving seat with his team's third 4 minutes into the second half from the spot, with Corbin Ong making it 4-0 in the 58th minute. Shafiq Ahmad put the icing on the cake for the home side in the dying minutes, sealing an emphatic 5-0 win for the favourites. The German Bundesliga now, Jamal Musiala is the toast of Munich after securing Bayern's 11th straight Bundesliga title in a 2-1 victory over Cologne. Bayern trailed league leaders Borussia Dortmund by 2 points heading into the match, and only a win would give them a chance of claiming the title. They quickly took the lead thanks to a powerful strike from Kingsley Coman, and although had further chances, still held the 1-0 advantage at the break. Late in the match, Serge Gnabry handballed on the edge of the penalty area and Dejan Ljubicic was able to equalise for Cologne. But 7 minutes later, Musiala curled in a beautiful strike to give the visitors the win. Moments later, Dortmund's 2-2 draw with Mainz was confirmed and Bayern players celebrated taking the title on goal difference. Coming up after the break, 3 killed after MPV loses control. Don't go away. The reinstatement of the Ujian Pencapaian Sekolah Rendah UPSR and the Form 3 Assessment PT3 examinations was deemed necessary to assess primary school students' academic performance. Many parents believe that the centralised exams would provide a clearer indicator of their children's academic progress and bridge the gap left by the current school-based assessment PBS system. Hakim Azman has the details.
Di Despite the objections from various groups, especially parents, the Education Ministry has stood by its decision to scrap UPSR and PT3 starting last year and to strengthen the implementation of the PBS instead. However, most parents believe that the PBS system fails to provide a clear understanding of their children's strengths and weaknesses.
We need that kind of assessment. There's no pressure on the children because after 6 years, we do not know how many of them can read or write when they enter Form 1. It's very crucial. So actually, I'm very sad that the UPSR has been abolished. It should be reinstated. So for the benefit of most parents. Otherwise, especially some children, B40 for instance, or many other children, because they like to play around and all that. After 6 years, they find that, because my siblings are all from education line, they find that there are many who enters Form 1 can't read and write.
Some parents also raise doubts over the accuracy of PBS grades in reflecting a student's true performance, which they claim has led to a decline in academic excellence. They also believe that the Education Ministry needs to make immediate improvement to the current national education system if the ministry truly wants to shift from an exam-centric system to ensure students are able to perform well academically for the sake of the country's future.
They are so complacent because there's no national exams, right? But then it is very much how the school can do better in terms of the activity they are doing now. But I think it's with a better format with the exam format compared to last time, I think they can do further improvement in terms of how they want to make it is like exam oriented, not just like an exam oriented, but they can focus more in terms of to include other mode of program as well as part of the exam.
Some students also echoed the call to reinstate UPSR and PT3 as it has yielded unexpected consequences for them rather than improving their academic performance.
PT3, the purpose of it is to tell where you are after you finish your Form 1, Form 2, Form 3 syllabus. Before you start onto the more harder, you will need the basics of Form 3. Because in Form 3, for example, let's say maths, there are like certain topics that you must use as a basic before you want to continue with your mod maths and add maths in Form 4 and Form 5.
Meanwhile, the National Parent Teacher Association's Consultative Council, PIBGN, stressed that any plan to reinstate the now abolished public exams requires careful consideration and thoughtful planning.
I must admit that the goal is worthwhile thinking and then put perhaps into action if the merits being called for. The current system, the penilaian pentaksiran sekolah or school-based system, has been very, I would call, subject to a lot of abuses. For once, there seems to be no standardized international or national examination for all the students. The pentaksiran basically is very biased based towards the school themselves.
The reintroduction of centralized exam has the potential to address the clarity parents seek when assessing their children's academic performance. However, it is also essential to prioritize the students' welfare and develop a comprehensive evaluation framework to shape the future of educational assessments in the country. Hakim Azman, TV3.
And lastly, in Johor, the fatal accident that killed 3 people and injured another at Jalan Johor Baru, Seremban, near Kampung Kuangsai, Segamat on Saturday, was due to an MPV losing control before crashing into a car. Segamat District Police Chief Superintendent Ahmad Zairi Marinsa said the 6:30 p.m. incident involved a Toyota Sainta and a Mercedes-Benz. Based on initial investigations, the MPV was travelling towards Ahmad when it suddenly went out of control and skidded onto the opposite lane before colliding into the oncoming car, causing it to burst into flames. The car driver and his passenger were burned to death, while another passenger was seriously injured. The MPV driver also died on the spot after the vehicle plunged into 5-metre deep ravine. After the collision, the deceased were identified as Chong Jui Chat, Hu Kok Yong and Wong Chi Choi, aged between 35 and 62, while the injured victim was identified as 67-year-old Lee Lam Chai. The victim's remains were later brought to the Sagamat Hospital for post-mortem, and the case was being investigated under the Road Transport Act. After almost 3 years since Beirut's port explosion, Lebanon's Sersok Museum reopened its doors on Friday, clearing the dust and destruction of the blast that damaged it. As we wrap up, let's take a look at the restoration, which included the replacement of the multicolored glass that characterizes the Sersok Museum, with all doors, elevators and ceilings repaired, in addition to the restoration of the traditional hand-carved wood cladding. With that, I'm Muhammed. I'm Hamdan. Thank you for joining us and take care, Malaysia.